The EPA has named the transportation sector as the largest contributor of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions. My next two guests join me to discuss how tomorrow's automobile industry can combat that, from electric cars to infrastructure developments and more. Cathy Zoi is the CEO of EVgo, the nation's largest public fast-charging network for electric vehicles. I met her a few years ago, and they were, going, but they become huge. Prior to joining EVgo, she served as the Assistant Secretary of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy in the Obama administration. Now we've got Morgan Folger is the Director of Environment, America's Destination Zero Carbon Campaign, which aims to make all new cars and trucks electric by all new cars and trucks electric by 2035. I just want to underscore that. Cathy and Morgan, thank you so much for joining me. So look, I guess we could just leave it to the two of you to solve all this, right? You got all the infrastructure. Cathy, what are the who are the villains in the story? What's in the way? What's an impediment to a much broader, you're already succeeding, so I don't know, what could get in your way from you succeeding even more?
We need to go faster, but it's changed a lot in the past few years. It is, like, I've been at EVgo for a little more than 3 years, 3.5 years. When I started, not every car company was electrifying. And today is the very, very rare automobile company that's not electrifying its fleets. Today, I saw another announcement that another governor has made a commitment to phase out internal combustion engines at the state level. So we've got hundreds of billions of dollars of capital. We've got state policies getting really, really excited. And so we need to get those cars into drivers' hands. And of course, one of the things that makes drivers excited about electric cars, other than riding them in them and they're really fun, is making sure that they can charge them, and that's what EVgo does. So we build fast chargers everywhere, and we make it convenient for folks to charge their cars away from home.
Real quick, are there countries ahead of us in this?
Oh yes, there are.
Which ones? Who are the biggies?
Europe,
or who are the little ones?
Europe. Norway is the number one. So I think Norway, more than half of the cars on Norwegian roads right now are already EVs. But in Europe, they're moving more quickly, and China's moving more quickly. So we have it's a global competition, but the United States can catch up. We're a very innovative place, and one of the reasons I'm very excited about what the Biden administration is talking about is that it's through the environmental lens, it's through the job creation lens, and it's through the global competitiveness lens. All three of those things work together beautifully.
Morgan, tell me about your years-long struggle to get a transition in commitments to make electric cars as opposed to gas cars. Because I have to tell you again, I'm aging myself, but a few decades ago, I sat across the room from Bob Lutz, who I think was at Chrysler then, and he said we will never ever get the batteries that we need to have EV. It was very definitive. This is a fool's errand. Don't go that way. So I just love to hear, how much of a lift this has been, and what do you think comes next?
Yeah, well, it certainly is a challenge, especially when we had the electric cars 100 years ago that were the first kind of cars.
We did. That's right. I saw one, and it's incredible.
Yeah, and so that's the history. And we went, did a left turn in the wrong direction, but we can get back on track and accelerate our future towards all electric cars. And what's exciting is, like Cathy mentioned, the car companies are moving in that direction more and more. The challenge, I think, over the past 4 years have been certainly at the federal level, the stalling of our clean car standards that really push the market forward and get those automakers to continue to innovate and move us towards that cleaner, greener future for transportation. So that's one of the big things the Biden administration will be focused on, is getting those back in place like we had in the Obama-Biden era. And I think the other thing is that the predictions people have of where clean energy, where electric vehicles are going to go are always way too conservative. Time and time again, decade after decade, the exponential growth of renewable energy and electric vehicles shows that these are the technologies of the future, and we'll keep moving in that direction.
Morgan, before you jump back to Cathy, how do I ask this? I could get this wrong, and so folks, forgive me. How do we make this industry in transition not one where the haves have the EVs and the have-nots have the gas guzzlers?
Yeah, I think that the more that we can provide financial incentives to help support people from all different levels of finances being able to get electric cars is huge. So the more we can provide direct rebates, cash on the hood. I worked on a campaign in New Jersey that created the largest electric vehicle rebate in the country of $5,000 that you get right when you get your car. And it was so popular, it sold out in just a few months. They ran out of money for the program. So the more that we can provide those incentives, that'll make it a little bit less burdensome for more people. And then I also think there can be a focus on other electrified modes of travel that aren't just the passenger car. So thinking about electric bikes, electric buses and transit that folks can take advantage of, and electric car sharing are kind of the mobility options of the future so that everyone can take advantage of this.
But that inequity, that potential inequity is on the radar screen of concerns for people, I assume, right?
Yes, it definitely is. And there's many, proposals that would direct funding for charging stations directly to communities that have been underserved for years. So I think we can do more to not just serve the wealthy communities in this country, but make sure electric cars are for everyone.
So that's great. So Cathy, I think I first met you when you were in Obama land. And I think that I met the chief economist of Ford Motor around that time you were there, and she said that the build out of electric charging stations was going to be one of the most exciting, really new changes. She was very positive, but kind of laid out what was going to happen. Now, we didn't meet that. We're not where I remember her talk. We're behind that. You've come into that space. Does the Biden infrastructure plan, do some of the investments that we're talking about help that, or is this on the side of that? Is what you're doing entirely in the private space? How do you get the money, the resources, the permitting to do the kinds of things you're doing? And are you built into some of the national infrastructure commitments that are being thought about now?
Yeah, so we're really excited about what the Biden administration is talking about doing. We need to accelerate the rollout of EVs. In order for that to happen, we need to accelerate the rollout of infrastructure. As a private company, what we do, and I liken it to Wayne Gretzky. We like to skate ahead of the puck, but just ahead of the puck. So we build to what the forecast for the number of EVs is going to be on the road, and we build just ahead of that. We can't really, as a private company, build 10 or 20 years ahead of that. So we're building right now, for what the car companies have announced that there's going to be probably 100 new models on the road over the next 5 or 7 years. So we've got a plan to build rapidly, but the world needs us. The climate needs us to build even more rapidly than that. And so the Biden administration infrastructure efforts are going to align the incentives to get the private sector deploying cars more quickly, manufacturing more models more quickly, getting them, as Morgan has identified, into the hands of all Americans. We all believe in electric for all, not just electric for the well-off. Getting cars into the hands of people that might not have access to at-home charging, which is why public charging is really important. All of those things really are having the infrastructure investment coming from the government to build that bridge to the future is very, very important to us.
I mean, I should know this, but I was going to ask you about at-home charging and where that was today, and whether or not I know what it's like to get solar panels. I have no idea what it's home to get at-home EV charging. So is that something you're involved with, and what's the state of play there? Which I know is not exactly what your line of business is, but where are we with at-home charging?
Well, in the old days, you wouldn't have probably bought an EV if you didn't have access to at-home charging. But the truth is 30% of Americans don't. They live in an apartment, or they rent, or they have a place that doesn't have a garage or a carport. So now that there are more models available at more price points, the people that live in apartments, frankly, like me, I live in an apartment in Santa Monica, California, that I rent. There's no access to charging in the garage downstairs.
How did you get an apartment in Santa Monica? The lines are so long.
But so the at-home charging, that will continue to be an option for folks who have a garage. But for many of us, that's not. For many of the people who drive for a living, they need convenient access to fast charging, because, like rideshare drivers, Uber and Lyft have made commitments to go all electric by 2030. Those rideshare drivers drive all day long, and they need to be able to charge fast on their lunch break. So the whole economy, fleets, there are millions and millions and millions of delivery fleets across America. They're electrifying. All of that infrastructure needs to be deployed to enable the ecosystem to develop.
Morgan, I've talked to a lot of auto companies, but also a lot of oil and gas companies. You've got Chevron, ConocoPhillips, you've got BP, you've got Shell, you have Audi, and you have VW. And there's a lot of players in this space that have been around EV space. But I'm wondering to what degree, to both of you, are you finding some of those auto industry players, oil and gas players, beginning themselves to invest in the kinds of things you're doing because they see that's their business too and that's going to be their future, as opposed to trying to squelch that? Do you find any inquiries coming from what used to be the other parts of the gas guzzling crowd?
Morgan, go ahead.
Yeah,
Morgan?
I would say that it's growing, but that there still isn't enough movement in that direction, and still a foothold on staying in the vehicles of the past that are internal combustion, that are polluting our planet and our air. And that is really unhealthy, not only for global climate change, but for everyday people who suffer from the impacts of air pollution. So what's exciting is that there are companies, like I know Shell, for instance, recently bought up an EV charging company and is doing big investments in that. And there are the auto companies like General Motors and Volvo that have said that they're moving towards all electric vehicle sales. So the more of those people that can recognize this is the direction we're headed, we can't meet our climate goals if we continue to rely on fossil fuels, the more that we can all work together to solve this massive challenge that we're facing as a generation.
Cool. Cathy, how about your world?
Well, I'd make the observation that the global oil companies that are based in Europe have been first movers for the sector. So Shell, as Morgan mentioned, BP, Total, they have already started to diversify and invest in not just electrification of transportation, but also in renewable energy writ large. So that they see themselves as the energy companies of the future, and they want to. And the CEO of Total said, we think that by 2040, well over half of the cars on the road are going to be EVs. And that's pretty fundamental. The American oil companies have not been moving as quickly. And I
Do we still have you? We have Morgan. I think we just lost Cathy. We lost her at that. If you want to finish Cathy's sentence, Morgan, you're welcome. I heard, first mover from the European side, beginning move on the others, but I think we may end it there. I just want to thank Cathy Zoi, who is the CEO of EVgo and someone I always enjoy talking to and learn so much. And Cathy, thanks so much for joining us. And also Morgan Folger, Director, Destination Zero Carbon Environment America. Thank you both very much for joining us today.